Thank you everybody, you're too kind. Welcome back. As some of you may know, this is Video Game Takeout's 2-year anniversary show, and to celebrate, I've decided to do something a little bit different. Now, if you watch the show a lot, then you know that for the most part, I cover games that would be considered retro. But in this special 2-year anniversary episode, I want to take a look at a game that just came out recently for the PSP called Hammerin Hero. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Hammerin Hero is actually a long-running series that goes all the way back to the arcades of the 90s, under the name Hammerin Harry. Since its initial release, there have been 8 games in the series, but of those 8, only 1 has come to the US, and that's the PSP game that I'm going to talk about here. A few of the older games did make it out in Europe though, so they are playable in English if you can manage to track them down. I've never played any of the previous games in this series, so this was my first foray into the Hammerin Hero series, but I have to say that I'm pretty impressed. In the game, you play as Gen, a carpenter who is trying to stop an evil corporation from taking over his town, which also has the added side effect of helping him out with the girl he likes. It's a paper-thin plot, but really that's not important. And on the plus side, it never gets overly talky like some games tend to. It basically just lets you jump in and play with as little interruption as possible. That being said, the small story bits that are there are fully voiced and are actually quite good. I liked all the voices, and the dialogue never overstayed its welcome. The game was brought to the US by Atlas, and as far as I'm concerned, they're pretty much the best in the localization game. They just always seem to pay attention to those little details that other companies don't. I mean, even the item descriptions are funny and worth checking out. So the localization is top-notch in my opinion. The main thing I love about this game though is that it never really takes itself too seriously. I mean, it plays great and it's got a lot going for it, but the thing that really sets this game apart from your standard platformer are the environments and all the crazy jobs that you can have. Every level is full of character and there's so many small touches in each stage that it really feels like you're working your way through a living environment rather than a static background. And in a way, you kinda are. During each stage, you can hammer away random villagers' negative thoughts, and they'll help you when you fight against the enemies. This is totally optional, but in some places it makes the game much easier, and it really adds to the level of interactivity in each stage. Sometimes the people will even unlock secret paths that are otherwise not available to you, so it's definitely worth helping them out if you can. The second thing I mentioned that really makes this game stand apart is the job system, and it is definitely unique. During the game, Gen will unlock the ability to take on new jobs. Each job has its own set of attacks and special moves that go with it. This is pretty standard stuff, and in practice each job is very similar to having a different power in a Mega Man game, but the jobs are so odd and uniquely Japanese that it really adds character to the game. For example, how many games let you play as a sushi chef and hit enemies with a gigantic fish, but then also let you be a DJ and kill people with records and a ghetto blaster? I'm gonna go ahead and guess that this is pretty much the only one. You can't change jobs freely in each stage, but before each level starts, you can have Kana make you a power-up in the form of a bento that allows you to switch jobs once per level. If you don't want to switch, then you can have her make a random bento, which usually gives you some extra defense or power, and that's always good, especially in the higher difficulty settings. Graphically, the game is amazing. It's colorful, well animated, and the characters are well drawn. It's definitely channeling that super deformed cute look from Mega Man Powered Up, which I think was a really great choice. The gameplay is 2.5D, and for the most part that works very well. The stages gain a lot of interactivity from this semi-3D perspective, and it's really cool to hit enemies into the background with your mallet. But the one downside to this is that the game suffers from some slowdown. It never ruined my play experience, and it's generally in places where you're not fighting a ton of enemies, but it is still a shame that they weren't able to get this fixed. Luckily, the game is not that fast-paced to begin with, so it's only a minor complaint. Slowdown aside though, I do have a few other small complaints. First off, the game is much harder than you'd think. I guess that's not really a complaint, but only being able to take one hit is pretty tough in my opinion. Luckily, if you fail a few times, an easier mode that allows 3 hits is unlocked, and you can play that easier mode through all the subsequent levels, which pretty much alleviates this problem. On that same note, although you can only be hit a single time on the normal and above difficulty setting, everything in the game that can hurt you lights up red, so it's easier to dodge them than in something like, say, Ghouls and Ghosts, for example. My other minor complaint is that the game is fairly short. I beat the whole thing in a little over an hour. Now I'm all for quality over quantity, but I do wish they had had a few more stages. I know you can go back and play them all over again in the different difficulties, and I actually did do that because I liked this game so much and I thought it was a lot of fun, but it just felt a little shorter than I would have liked overall. In the end, I think Hammerin Hero is one of the best original PSP games to date. On a system that's full of ports and remakes, it's nice to see a smaller company like IREM take a chance and make something new for the system. Hammerin Hero might be a little on the short side, but it's great while it lasts, and if the short playtime doesn't bother you, then I definitely recommend that you give this one a shot. Well, that wraps up this week's show. I want to thank all the viewers for making this an amazing 2 years. I started Video Game Takeout on a whim, and now it's so much bigger than I ever thought it would be. I want to thank all of you, and of course all my friends over at Retroware TV, because if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't have made it this far. I know there haven't been many Video Game Takeout episodes lately, but that's because I'm working on other projects like Double Jump, specials for the site, an occasional game quickie here and there, and of course the podcast. It's all going to get back to normal before long, but in the meantime, I'm just hoping that Year 3 will be as great as Year 2 was. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Video Game Takeout.